I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Video Game Champion from Arcane Wonders. Video Game Champion is a 2 to 5 player set collection game that simulates the good old days of video games. I mean, we still are in the good old days of video games, but this harkens to a time past of renting video games from the store, getting the newest releases, grabbing those magazines, and getting those cheat codes before the internet was a thing. Do you remember? I don't know about you. I remember once upon a time when it was cool to be able to figure out the cheat codes for a game. Like, there were sites, before like Google was a thing, there were sites, you had to know about the sites, and then you could go to those sites and get cheat codes. There were some fun things back in the days. There's still fun things today, just different fun things. We've traded lots of... Anyways, let's talk about this game. Video Game Champion is a game that kind of has that video game theme. You're going to be renting video games, buying video games, and getting magazines, but ultimately the main thing you're going to be doing is trying to gather these buttons in order to play these video games in order to get points. To that end, let's loosely talk about how you get points, walk through the turn structure, and then go through all the other details. The general idea is you're going to get points for playing video games, playing or completing video games. Specifically, when you complete a video game, you're going to get the points in the top corner. Now, you could play video games and not get points for them, but completing them is going to give you points, so you want to be mindful of that. Completing is generally a good thing. Playing, though, is also a good thing. You're also going to get points for goals. Just to give you an example of one of these goals, this goal over here is if you've played 3 of these types of games, see that little icon over here, then you're going to take this card and you'll get the 8 points on it. There's going to be a variety of these goals giving you different ways to get points for having done different things. You're also going to get points for playing video games, not just completing them, playing them as well. As I mentioned, you can play or complete video games, and those have different things. We'll talk about that soon. But at the end of the game, you're going to get points for every game you've played above 5. So once you get to 6, 7, 8, you get 2 points per game you've played. You're also going to get points for playing the most games, as well as getting the most new releases. Whenever you see a gem over here, that means you have something hyped, new, whatever. You've played the newer games, you've bought newer games, as opposed to renting games from this area here that are not new. So you get points for that as well. And then lastly, you're going to get points as well for your personal player board. We'll talk more about this soon, but as you gather gems, you'll place them down, getting in-game bonuses, but also sometimes points for completing rows and columns. So that was probably a lot of information, but a good general idea to go for is completing video games is worth points, playing video games is worth points, and getting specific goals is worth points. It's going to be a big chunk of the points you get in this game. So, how do you do all of that? Well, the way you play or complete a video game is by cashing in these buttons on it. For example, this game over here of Fairy Tales is going to take 4 of the same number. So you see all these buttons over here that have numbers on them, the 8s, the 1, the 6s, etc. If you can cash in 4 of a kind, you can complete this video game, marking it with your token showing you've completed the game. On the other hand, if you ever do the first 2 buttons in a set, then you've played the game but not completed it. So if I only trade in 2 of a kind, I can mark that I've played the game. That will help me complete it later because you can cash that in for a while. We'll talk more about that later. But basically, you can play a game with fewer buttons, always 2, or you complete a game by cashing in the whole set. That means games like this, for example, these 3 games are all the same to play or complete them. This is 2 of a kind. This would be a straight, so a 6 or a 7. This would be a royal flush, effectively, a 1, 2, 3, 4 of the same color, or 4, 5, 6, 7, but same color and straight. That little pink background means it needs to be the same color, and those are generally the sets, same color, same number, or same color and a straight. But past that, you're trying to now get these buttons. Now that you know how to play or complete it, you're trying to get the buttons. That brings us to the turn structure here. The game is going to play out across 5 rounds. In each round, the first thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be selecting buttons from this grid. When you select a button from this grid, so for example, let's say I want that blue 2, I can take the blue 2, and then I can take the action in the row or column of that button. So you're trying to be mindful of which actions you want to take, as well as which buttons you want in order to trade them in to complete those. We'll come back to some of the actions later, but basically you're trying to get these buttons. You're going to do that 3 times, gathering various buttons in order to go ahead and take your actions. Now, players are going to be taking turn by turn, going ahead and selecting a button, and at the end of the round, you'll refill it. Before I talk about the individual actions, let's talk about a few concepts. You have your rentals over here. This entire section is the rental area. When you rent a game from here, you're going to mark it with your meeple saying, look at that, I rented that game. That means this game has been taken out, but you're just marking it that you have your person here, the video game store has currently rented Fairy Tales to you. You can buy games from over here. These games will become your games. They're going to get them. They're going to be completely yours. Other players cannot complete them. And then you have these magazines over here, which will help you towards completing certain games. So for example, if I have this magazine over here, I can use this as a wild towards either of these two game types over here or over here. You can see those, and that will help me complete these various sets over there. Then outside of that, you have the concept of cash and IOUs. Cash is going to be very helpful to be able to do certain things, usually renting games, and then IOUs are usually the thing that you have to do to kind of pay it back. Think of it as getting something from your parents, but now you have to do chores around the house. It's going to require something to kind of get rid of them. With that in mind, we can now explain the actions. The actions you have are, this one is taking 2 tiles from the bag, 2 button tiles. This one is this one's visiting the rental store, where you can either pay $1 to rent a regular video game or pay $2 to rent a new release. New releases are helpful because they'll get you these gems, which are going to go onto your player board, where once you complete rows and columns, you're going to get the various bonuses on that player board, and that includes points at the end of the game. So you want to be mindful of those new releases there. Over here, you can go ahead and pay $1 to get one of these magazines, which again will come with one of these gems, as well as of course helping you complete video games. This over here is going to be getting back 2 IOUs. So let's talk about IOUs first because they're over here. This one is you get $2 from your parents, but an IOU has to clog your grid. This is a good time to note you can only ever have a maximum of 8 buttons in your grid. You can't have more than that, which means IOUs are going to clog your grid very quickly, so you want to get rid of them using these owls. So this action gives you an IOU and $2. This one gets rid of 2 IOUs. This one gets rid of an IOU and gives you $1. This one gives you one of these new release video games. You get a gift from your parents at the cost of 3 IOUs. And lastly, this one lets you swap a tile, as well as setting you up for going earlier in turn order next turn. So that's going to be the action grid. As you can see, there's a combination of going to the video game store, getting new games, getting magazines, and then effectively managing your tiles, your IOUs, your cash, all of that. When the round is over, players are going to have the opportunity to actually play their games. That means any games they own, their starting game or any they got as gifts, or anywhere they currently have their meeple, they can now trade in their buttons if they are able to go ahead and complete the games. That's going to be how you actually go ahead and play or complete games. When that's done, when all players have taken their 3 actions, they have a chance to play their games. When that's done, you'll rearrange turn order, and then all players get a free action to go rent a game. So this action over here where you can rent games, you can get a free action once this is all done, so you know that you have a guaranteed trip to the video game store to rent a video game. You still have to have the cash for it, so you want to plan around it, but that'll give you an opportunity to get one more free action effectively. So you have the 3 actions throughout the round, plus that 4th bonus free rental of a game from the video game store. That's the basic idea of the game. There's a lot of other small little details we haven't talked about when you play games, getting these tiles, things like that, but for the most part, the general idea of the game is you are trying to manage your economy, taking actions from this grid, using those to build up sets of buttons, making sure not to go above 8, trading those in to complete your various video games, those that you've rented as well as those that you've owned, and try to be the player who has earned the most points at the end of 5 rounds of play. And with that, we're going to go ahead and dive into my thoughts of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking about the game. As far as what I like about the game, there's a nice balance of actions you can take on this grid, and you are managing your economy. And this is a game that is going to be significantly trickier after a round or 2 than you at first thought. There's a lot to balance as far as the pacing of getting these various tiles, of trying to figure out which actions and which buttons are going to help you the most. You might really want that 5, 6, 7, well actually you have 5, 6, 7, 8 over here on this grid, which can be incredibly helpful, although you can actually only get 3 tiles per turn, so that won't be that helpful. But maybe you already have these 6 over here somewhere, whatever, and you're trying to get the 5, 7, 8. This can be great for filling this in, which is worth 9 points. But you might want to balance that. Are those the actions you want to take? What if you want to take this action over here? Well, you can't do that with any of these buttons, so you have to compromise on what it is you're taking. As you finish off various video games, you're going to get more buttons, so you want to balance that to cascade nicely into getting as many video games done as possible. But you're trying to balance getting the video games you need, having the money you need, getting new releases, because filling up this board over here, and these are variable, but filling up these boards, your personal player boards with gems, is incredibly impactful. But you need cash to get those new releases, or IOUs, so you're very quickly going to have to figure out which things you want. You're also balancing all of that with the various goals that you have in play. So there's a lot to balance as you try to work your way through these 5 rounds of play, figuring out what it is that you need to be able to most efficiently combine all the things you're trying to do. You're trying to do too much, and you don't have enough time to do so. This little grid over here is easily one of my favorite parts. It's something fun about getting those tiles. Again, you can't get everything, but starting to fill out various sections, getting those rows and column bonuses can nicely cascade into one or two things that are going to give you a little bit more oomph to your turn. As far as what I don't like about the game, unfortunately there's a lot more that I don't like. There's elements that I do like here, I covered all of them, but there's a lot more that I don't really enjoy as much about the experience. And I should note, just in case it matters, growing up, I definitely played a lot of video games. I don't think I've ever rented a video game in my life. And maybe that's an important thing that will make this game more enjoyable. I don't know, but I don't have that nostalgic factor. I have played video games, I bought them. I think once in my life I've gotten a video game magazine. I did do the whole cheat codes on the internet thing, but like video game magazines, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm about to launch into a bunch of things that I didn't enjoy as much about the game. And maybe it's possible that having that nostalgic aspect to it, where you've had more of these experiences, maybe it's possible that will make these elements more enjoyable. For me, a little bit less so. But with that out of the way, first of all, I didn't find the game nearly as intuitive as what I would like, both for learning it as well as teaching it. I don't know what it is about it, but maybe the fact that like such a big chunk of it is renting video games as opposed to owning them. And again, that's not the experience I had growing up. The video games I played growing up, I owned. I never rented a video game. So to have the majority of the game being focused on renting games and only a small kind of sub aspect on owning them, even just that aspect I found unintuitive. I also don't like it from a visual perspective. It doesn't feel like you're renting a game. It feels like this worker placement putting your token down. It doesn't feel like you've checked this game out. Yes, across the course of the game, someone can come in later and rent fairy tales after the turn you have. This will clear next round, someone else can come in and take it, sure, but it never really feels like you're actually renting a game in any real sense, at least not to me as I played it. This game is also a table hog, by the way. This is all just the general play area, nothing to do with the other players and their stuff. So it is much more of a table hog than you might expect. It's one of those games that definitely will surprise you. I guarantee you, if you've played this game, you already know that it surprised you. And if you haven't played this game, even with me telling you this, you will get the game, set it up, and be like, oh, it is a lot bigger than I thought it was. In general, the game visually felt a little bit all over the place. I wasn't really pulled in by any particular aesthetic. Like, we have the various video game art, that's nice. The cartridge aspect, that's nice. But the buttons feel weird. The general action tiles, like even this IOU aspect, the whole thing felt very over the top in terms of the graphic design aspect to it without really having a clear feeling to it. So overall, I can't say I was, like, the cover pulled me in, but then once I actually sat down to play it, the whole thing felt a little bit like a visual mess going into it. You're also very limited in terms of what you can store in the game. That 8-button limitation where you can only have 8 buttons, it does provide you with decision space that ends up being crunchy because you're trying to make it all work. There's gonna be turns where you're like, I have to be a little inefficient here in order to get those things that I want, and that part's nice. The problem is the limitation of 8 buttons means you can't really ever evolve to having interesting turns. You can't evolve to having cascading turns where you do this, then this, then this. You can't set up across multiple rounds in order to have those turns where you do a bunch of things at once, which means across 5 rounds of play, you find yourself in the exact same arc every single time. What exactly do I need to complete these exact 2 video games in order to make sure I'm being efficient with my space, and let's rinse and repeat that cycle again and again and again. The limitation, while it does add crunchiness, does so at the cost of making the game cycle feel very repetitive and leaving very little room for interesting gameplay decisions. Hopefully that makes sense, but I really didn't like that 8-button limitation. And I'll also say that for the type of game this is, it felt much tighter than what I would expect out of something like this. And tightness in the game can be a good thing. I think this one felt like a weird arc between how tight the economy and everything was versus what type of game it's trying to be in other areas. Like, there's a lot of things where you just can't afford to do nearly as much as what you like, and you really have to have these trade-offs in play, which again can be a good thing. It felt a little bit out of place with the type of game this is trying to be, or at least the type of game it seems like it's trying to be, so I should be careful with my words there. As far as what I can see others not liking, there's definitely a luck factor too, even in terms of what cards will come out as you're trying to accomplish various goals, the cards you come out, the various gems you have and how they align with your grid. Even the buttons in the sets that you currently have and whether new ones come out or even if you draw from the bag. There's definitely a high luck factor to certain things, but for the most part that didn't bother me. That wasn't my main issue with the game. Overall, as far as final thoughts on Video Game Champion, I was a little let down by this one. And rating-wise, I'm coming in at a 3 out of 5. And that might feel like almost positive compared to my list of like versus not like. And that might come down to my expectations for the game or how much I wanted to like this game. I was going into this very excited about it. I'd heard good things. The theme seemed like a nice callback. I was very into all of that. And then none of this kind of worked out in not just the way I want, but to the level that I would want it to work out for whatever it is that it's trying to be. It felt a little bit all over the place. Too light in some areas, not light enough in others. It almost felt like a filler game that runs too long. It's a weird contrast of different things. So like, it's not a bad game. Again, 3 out of 5. It's not a bad game. It was still a fun experience, but it definitely wasn't an experience that shunned for me. It was an experience that felt like it checked a bunch of boxes, gave you what you needed to do, but it felt like there was almost more of an homage to what the theme was trying to be than to what the mechanics allowed the game to be. So overall, it's not bad, but it's also not one that was, it's not one that was particularly enjoyable. It was a good enough experience. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Comic Hunters if you want a game that dabbled in the nostalgia aspect a lot more. I felt that one did a much better job at being a testament to what you're trying to do thematically, as opposed to this one that kind of fell flat for me. And also check out the Fox Experiment. I don't know exactly why, but something about the general collection aspect of this game and to that we're trying to cash those things in to do what you want. Fox Experiment felt like a much better implementation of that kind of thing, while also being very different at the same time. In any case, then until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.